Unlimited hydroplanes, the world's fastest racing boats. These machines literally fly across the water surface at speeds over 200 miles per hour. Turbine engines power these race boats as they battle on the liquid oval. And at 200 miles an hour on the always changing surface of water, Thunderboat pilots can find themselves over the edge in a heartbeat.
Chip Hanauer powers hard into the turn. He gets airborne. Chip Hanauer going over in turn number 1. He was trying to break to the front of the pack. He had the inside lane. He's upside down in the water.
It can happen that quick. Streaking across the surface 1 second and the next soaring into the sky, only to crash back down into the water with disastrous results. Actually, the name says it all, hydroplane, a boat that acts like an aircraft. As the Miss Budweiser accelerates, her aerodynamic hull is launched skyward. But as the prop loses contact with the surface, all forward thrust is lost, and the airborne Thunderboat plummets back into the water. All hydroplane pilots are protected by a cockpit canopy that deflects the water's crushing impact. Now, the rescue crew quickly extricated Hanauer from the overturned race boat through an emergency hatch in the hull. Chip suffered a couple of broken ribs, but it could have been a whole lot worse, and he knew it more than anybody. Here's the piston-driven Old Boy Oberto racing on Lake Washington near Seattle. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that sets boat racing apart from other motorsports is the fact that these racecraft compete on the ever-changing surface of water. The Oberto hits some small rollers and is tossed off the course and nearly overturns. Even in an incident like this one, the wall of water generated at impact could severely injure a driver. That's why the canopies are such an important safety factor. Now, you can see the results of getting bumped around in the water at only 150 miles per hour. The driver was uninjured in this mishap. The only injury to the driver, some bruises from the seat belt. That's not a surprise. The Detroit River has been the site of hydroplane racing since the late 20s, and today it's still one of the premier stops on the Thunderboat Tour. In the '89 Detroit race, Scott Pierce, piloting the Miss Pringles, was battling to keep the lead in Heat 1B when his high-tech race boat, watch this! Houston, we have liftoff. A terrifying 200-mile-an-hour blowover. The Pringles landed right on top of the cockpit and rolled over into an upright position. The cockpit again credited with saving Scotty Pierce's life. As you can see, the impact tore off the rear stabilizing wing and destroyed the engine housing. As he prepared to make the pin in turn 3, the bow lifts and the boat is immediately thrown into the air and over, crashing back down into the Detroit River on its back. Ugly. The cockpit canopy protecting the pilot from impact remains intact and the boat rolls right side up. The specially trained waterborne safety teams of the URC were right on the scene and extricated Pierce moments after the impact. His only complaint? A sore ankle. Historians will note that George Woods won the 1988 San Diego race, but every boat racer and fan will remember this long after the history books are on the shelf. Two boats both encounter the same conditions at just the wrong moment, and both blow over in spectacular fashion. The Circus Circus, piloted by John Prevost, and the Hulset Miss Madison with Ron Snyder in the cockpit, lay side by side in Mission Bay after a 1 in a million freak accident. You know, the blowover is a frightful but not uncommon occurrence in the world of unlimited hydroplanes, but never before or since have two Thunderboats launched off the water surface and experienced simultaneous blowovers. In replay, we'll follow Prevost and the Circus Circus as little by little the bow lifts and the hydroplane takes off. The pilot is just a helpless rider in a 200-mile-an-hour uncontrolled flight. As the Circus Circus crashes to the surface on its stern, the wood and composite hull is broken in two by the force of the impact. In this head-on replay, we can see the Circus Circus on the left lifts off first. But less than a second later, the Madison is in trouble. Both boats fly a couple hundred feet in the air and then crash back into the bay. The Madison falls through the rooster tail of the passing Oberto boat and lands upside down in the water. Both pilots were treated for injuries and returned to racing after this truly unique incident in the history of motorsports. Racing fans across America's heartland thrilled to the action of these winged wonders, dirt track sprint cars. And the stands at the 94 Knoxville Nationals were filled to capacity when Andy Hillenberg's machine made an unexpected run at leaping the wall. Quite a leap indeed. The surface of the track gets hard-packed and very greasy in no time at all. In fact, that's the way the drivers like it. But no one likes to slide out of the turn and take an up-close view of the sign painter's artwork a good 20 feet off the track, especially in a speeding open-wheeled racer. The Sprinter sustained considerable damage. Andy, well, he walked away from his high-flying aerial display. Now, let's get on with the action from NHRA's Funny Car Division. Forget about that green and white car. Nope, this isn't another fiery John Force burn it to the ground on every run extravaganza. In this episode of And They Walked Away, we're in search of the successor to John's title of unintentional funny car stunt driver. First off, Al Hoffman at the 93 Motorcraft Ford Nationals in Phoenix. In the blink of an eye, Hoffman's car goes from race winner to a rolling inferno with Al in the cockpit surrounded by flame. Unable to see, much less stop the car, Hoffman travels into the desert past the end of the track, his vehicle hopelessly engulfed in a raging fire. From the finish line, we see the engine let go just as he streaks across the head of Force. A valve hangs, filling the cylinder with fuel. The piston can't compress the unburnt fuel and kicks a hole in the block. Hot oil gushes from the cracked engine and ignites on the white hot headers, all in a fraction of a second. And now is when seconds really count. Al must steer clear of the wall, stay out of the other competitor's lane, bring his burning race car to a stop, and exit the wreckage before he's overcome from the heat and smoke. Here you can see the exploded engine pieces and parts racing along ahead of the fiery Hulk as it slides, fully involved in the flame, to the end of the track. And not unlike the Phoenix, Al Hoffman rises from the ashes of his race machine. He suffered some superficial burns, a little smoke inhalation, but was otherwise unhurt. Hoffman's car? Well, that's another story altogether. The engine in the machine split right in half.
This car hasn't had an engine explosion in a year and a half, so we put a brand new set of connecting rods in at that run, and I'm suspecting that we must have had one that was not up to snuff because it had no reason for doing that. The engine was fine after the last run.
Tommy Anderson, like all crew chiefs, embarrassed by a moment like that. They feel they shouldn't happen. You know, next up on our tour of funny car pyromania from the 1993 Winter Nationals, Flash Gordon Mineo in the far lane. He hydraulics the engine in qualifying with the predictable result. Just 2 races later, Mineo pulls into the lights in Houston in his rebuilt car to face off against Brent Fanning. But in seconds, Mineo's attention turned from the funny car quarter-mile battle, yep, you got it, to fighting another blazing fire that engulfed his machine in seconds. Flash Gordon manages to bring the burning car to a stop and begins to make his escape. Holding his breath, he releases the 5-point harness system and then squeezes out of the tight confines of the funny car's protective roll cage through the roof hatch. That's why it's there. All the time surrounded by flame and noxious smoke from the burning carbon fiber body. Now, Mineo came out through the roof hatch, jumped clear of the burning wreck, and then started to raise the body himself to try to save what he could of the race car. But it was too late.
I can't keep rods in it. Every time I step on it, it's over.
Thank God for the safety factors built into this automobile. At least we're talking.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm getting sick of this deal. I tell you, I got to do something quick.
First thing I'd do is lose the nickname, Gordon. It was not long before we once again saw Mineo in trouble, this time in Topeka, Kansas. He lit up the quarter mile in a 280-mile-an-hour firestorm. Mineo brings the rolling inferno to a safe stop just as the NHRA Safety Safari is on the scene to put out the fire and get Gordon out of the burning car. In this replay, we can see the magnitude of the fire as the Safety Safari is literally waiting on the burning car to arrive. And even while totally involved with flame, Mineo does an incredible job of keeping his car in his lane. And it's a testament not only to Gordon's experience and driving skill, but also to the design and construction of these cars. And the safety gear that allows a driver to be able to walk away from a drive through hell.
I really don't know what happened in there. I don't know if it blew through the clutch, pitched the rod out, what happened. It wasn't all that bad of a run, I didn't think.
No, it was not. You're used to fighting these fires.
Yeah, I guess I ought to open up a little school, huh? Everybody else has.
We now begin the chronicle of the long, hot summer of '93 as seen through the eyes of Mr. Whit Bazemore. Whit's funny car trial by fire begins at the aptly named Firebird Raceway in Phoenix. The fast orange machine grenades an engine and slowly winds its way to a stop while uncontrolled fire envelops the car. Again, the safety safari on the scene in seconds pierces the shroud of caustic smoke and moves in to assist Bazemore from the cockpit. But Whit motions that he wants to take his time exiting the smoldering ruins of his car, a luxury he won't have very often. Now, the next stop on Bazemore's cross-country fireworks show was The Rock, Rockingham, North Carolina, the Winston Invitational. And once again, the engine lets go, and Whit's fighting fire before mid-track. He was able to get the chutes out, however, and brought the car to a quick stop just past the finish line. Whit's next task, getting out from his flaming hot seat in the cockpit through a blinding wall of smoke and flame. It's not something any driver wants to have to get good at. When the fire-weary Fast Orange team came to the line at the '93 Spring Nationals, things took a more serious turn. Much more serious. Bazemore's car exploded with such fury that after hitting both guardrails, it was reduced to basically a burned-out sled. And miraculously, Bazemore releases himself, stands up, and steps out of what was his funny car. In replay, as Whit accelerated down the track, his engine exploded with so much destructive power it lifted the entire car off the track, shredding both rear slicks and disintegrating the rear of the body. At this point, Bazemore was a helpless rider as the machine hurtled into the near side guardrail and was tossed onto its side. Still traveling maybe 100 miles an hour, the wreck impacted the other rail, snagging what was left of the body and turning right side up. But in an incident like this, the best possible scenario is to lose the fiberglass body, which burns far longer than the engine after an explosion. Looking at what was left, you wouldn't think I'd be talking to the guy who moments before drove this car through such destruction.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a funny car racer, and I'm a funny car racer now, but every once in a while you got to have second thoughts, and we'll be back, I'm sure. My head's a little sore right now.
You can believe that Whit's whole body was feeling the result of this crash for a while. We give our "and they walked away" unintentional stunt driver award to Whit Bazemore for his funny car pyrotechnics. He clinched it with this boomer at the '93 finals in Pomona. Whit turns his sedan into a roadster with a horrific engine explosion. And there's no real fire. The concussion of the blast and the fire suppression system simply knocked the flames down before it could ignite the body. And there they are, the white knights of the safety safari. Bazemore wearily signals, "I'm okay," and exits the car, ending a season of mishaps. It was an expensive year of drag racing for Mr. Whit Bazemore, one he won't soon forget. Us either.